श्वेता मैम, एक ही चीज था. We
Yeah.
were, is the group open today? Okay, so the group is open, right? I will
Yeah.
be sharing the presentation also. So I will share the presentation for yesterday and today. No problem. You will yesterday many people were asking, so I've told Saurabh also to share it.
लाइव चालू हो
Okay.
गया.
Okay, all right.
So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the third day of this workshop on artificial intelligence. Today, the topic is introduction of statistics in AI. And again, we have with us Professor Asif Rampurwala. Also, we have with us Secretary of WIRC, CA Murtaza Katwala. So, I request him to please address to the participants.
Thank you, Shweta. I also recognize presence of Professor Asif, and I welcome all the participants. So friends, good afternoon and welcome to this course. I'm sure like people who have joined in for this course must be really interested in knowing various things. And before we started the session, I was just chatting up with Asif and Shweta, and so basis the chat, I would like to touch upon 2 or 3 real life cases which we have implemented as an organization in my clients. So everyone here definitely knows that like in large organization there is a month end provision, outstanding का calculation करके एक entry मारते हैं. So in a large organization there will be a person who will write a mail to each and every department asking for the provision figure, and then he will say expense account debit to outstanding provision. Now people will not give reply. They will say, he will send a mail, some will reply, some will not reply. Then he will write a reminder, then he will write to his boss. Then someone will give the information, but he will say, okay, I want to see the evidence. So someone will scan the proof and send it, the PDF or the scan copy on mail, and this guy will check. And then he will say, नहीं आपने तो 1 लाख का provision बोला था, लेकिन invoice तो 80,000 का है. And then he will tally everything in Excel, and he will pass one accounting entry for expense account debit to outstanding expense. So what we did is, by using, now I am not saying whether I used a RPA or a DA or a R or a SQL, I'll come to that also. But we created a automatic type of a thing, a portal where each department was given a user ID, password, and a maker and a checker. The department head was given a checker ID. And automatically on 29th of the month, mail goes to the maker and also to the checker. And on the 30th of the month, the maker, he puts his user ID, password, inserts his numbers, and he uploads the evidences there. And then the checker, the department head, goes and approves it, and automatically everything comes. So the automatic reminders go. If the person does not submit on the first evening, again a reminder goes automatically, so no one has to manually do. All the inputs come in, everything is calculated, there is no totaling error, and then the accounting entry goes from that platform to that link to the SAP or Oracle directly, because it is connected. So this is one. Second, like we did something for a telecom operator, and like whenever there is a New Year or Diwali or X or Y, people come up with a new plan. So prepaid का plan आता है, postpaid का plan आता है कि इतना रुपया दोगे तो इतना मिनट मिलेगा, इतना ये मिलेगा, इतना ये मिलेगा. Now prepaid postpaid team or multiple teams will create this plan and go to the CFO. CFO को बोलेंगे कि 5,000 लोग आने वाले हैं प्लान में. Now CFO says अगर 5,000 नहीं आए और 4,000 लोग आया तो क्या होएगा revenue, or whether this plan will be viable or not. So we created an interactive dashboard for the CFO whereby he can go and change the number, he can change the variable कि अगर 200 रुपए का रिचार्ज नहीं हुआ, 250 का हुआ, तो ये प्लान viable है क्या नहीं है, XYZ. So there are these type of things which are implemented by organizations across. Okay, it can be SAP, it can be a Salesforce, a cell tool, it can be a timesheet based tool, it can be multiple different type of things, and it is a reality. So when we talk about RPA, robotic process automation, there are 3 companies who sell the bot. One is UiPath, one is Automation Anywhere, and Blue Prism. And these bots or RPAs can be used to automate the bank reconciliation, to do claim processing, to do payroll processing, to process invoices, purchase invoices. Now, when you talk about data analytics, in data analytics, there can be an open source like an R, and there can be a closed source like an SQL. SQL is a licensed product, and R is a free product. Okay, but R will have less capabilities, SQL will have more capabilities, and you can write queries. Now these queries can be written by the audit function also and by the operating team like a finance team also. Now these queries for one process and multiple process can be written, and you can have a continuous control monitoring, so a dashboard which will keep on giving you a regular errors as well. So I'm saying there are so many different things which can all be clubbed into and which can be utilized by an organization in doing embarking onto a journey of automation and digitalization. Now I will stop in another 30 seconds. Friends, after COVID, each and every organization is now thinking, how can we automate? How can we digitalize? How can we work from home? Because we don't know whether this COVID will last for 12 months or 15 months. कल अगर मेरा ऑफिस रेड जोन में आ गया, बंद हो गया, तो क्या करूंगा? अगर मेरे पास वेयरहाउस में कितना स्टॉक पड़ा है, ये मेरे को स्टॉक चाहिए तो कैसे मिलेगा? मेरा डेटर्स का कितना पैसा आने का बाकी है, कैसे मालूम पड़ेगा? So people want to see these dashboards on their mobile. So there are a lot of things and lot of organizations talking about automating lot of things in their organization. The beauty is, as chartered accountants, we know order to cash, we know inventory, we know procure to pay. So we will have to understand the process and we will have to say what to automate. And the coders like Asif Bhai or others will come and only do the coding. But what to code, we'll have to tell. So in every assignment, a CA will have to play that consultant role of saying what can be done, how it can be done, which data to pick up from where, what to analyze with what, and then the coders will code using an RPA or DA or SQL R or whatever, and then it will be the solution will be implemented for the company. So there is a lot of practical implementation, and we chartered accountants and get into practical implementation, and there the amount of fees which we get and the rate per hour which we can bill is much more than the normal practice where we do for an accounting and a return and XYZ. With that, let me stop. But before stopping, let me also acknowledge that Shweta is doing a really excellent job. She is helping WRC in coordinating all these IT events. Hats off to you, Shweta, for your dedication, and thank you very much for all the help and support. And thank you, Asif Bhai, for coming over and taking this session. And all the best to all the participants. Happy learning. I will stop. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Sir, Asif sir, request to you to start for the session.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mursa, and thank you, Shweta. The comments, and there is a WhatsApp group, and the comment is that Mursa sir should continue and take over the entire session, so I can go home. So, and I truly appreciate Mursa sir's views, and it always is better to have somebody from your your own peer group explain to you the kind of situations which you are in. And obviously I don't understand many of the terminologies in accounting which you might have used, but the things which you said were very relevant, because one of the things which what you mentioned about the entire idea of having to automate as a necessity now rather than a luxury or a choice is very true. And companies who are trying to integrate these automated solutions, whether these names like you mentioned, robotic process automation, RPA, or any other implementation with whatever names which we use nowadays, hypes and jargons keep coming up, AI, ML, all of these, they all have to be done with the help of the domain experts. So I can actually code stuff, but I don't understand the head or the tail of accounting. Okay, so you unless a person tells me that you pick up this data and you give me a visualization of what you really want to achieve from that data, I cannot code for you. Or anybody who is in the technical team for you will not be able to imagine what you want, because what they will do with work, many people tell us, give us a dashboard. Now what the dashboard means is nothing. Okay, so unless you tell me what the dashboard is supposed to do functionally, okay, and where this data needs to be pulled up from, because most of the data are generally in multiple disparate systems, in various silos. Sometimes they are in your databases, sometimes they are in Excel sheets, sometimes they are in other kinds of format, maybe on people's website, sometimes it's secondary data which is coming from government and stuff like that, and all of these need to be pulled pooled in to, to get you the kind of summary reports which your CFOs or your CEOs or your CXOs generally need. And it is very vital for each category of at every stage in an organization, right from the executive to the CEO, to start understanding the terminology of this technology, even if they don't understand the implementation. So we don't worry about if everybody can implement these technologies. We need to understand the terminology, and that's what the entire course which we've designed is to do, is to show you, to demonstrate to you what is capable, what is possible, and then what are the terms which are used. Okay, so with
So
that in mind,
in fact,
please,
Ashish
please.
ji, I'll take only another 10 seconds. So if like there is a need and Shweta can get the input, I can do a half an hour or 1 hour, Shweta, during the whenever in between or like at the end of it at the last, where like I can just keep on talking practically how it has been implemented. So when I say claim processing, what do we get from where and how do you process claim and what tools can be used? Similarly, payroll processing. So how can you implement this in payroll processing? So those type of examples. And when I say RPA in doing bank reconciliation, I can even show some video that like a bank reconciliation of 800 line item using a particular UI path, in how much time it can be done and what does the bot do. So I can show those, and I can even cover something like a voice recording tool or a process mining tool like a Celonis. So really practically as a statutory auditor or internal auditor, what can we implement, where can we implement practically, and which tool falls where. I can do that half an hour, 45 minutes, 1 hour, whatever, if you want, whenever. Okay, Shweta, so no worries. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Sure, sir. We'll plan it. Definitely.
Sure, sure. Yes.
Yeah, I think that would be the icing on the cake. So exactly, these kind of tools which are there being implemented, and actual practitioners would be able to implement it much better. And what we as technology is always says, we in IT guys, we always say one of the things which IT people lack is a particular domain, and so we know a lot about technology, but we would not be able to know, because IT today is used in every field, whether it's healthcare, whether it's accounting, whether it's corporate governance, whatever. All of the fields everywhere use IT. These tools, whether it's AI, RPAs, data mining, there's n number of names which are there. However, understanding it in your own context is very important. So I would encourage everybody to take, these fundamentals and apply them in, and try to get these actual case studies from your area of field. Okay, so again today, I was just talking to Shweta when Mr. Mursa, and we started a couple of minutes later than usual, because I was worried that probably people might not join too many because it's statistics. It's and the challenge which we are going to have. Okay, I'm just reading some messages. Okay, so the challenge which we are going to have today is that it might be too trivial for some, and it might be, maybe slightly complicated for others. I don't know. Because it depends on the amount of statistics which you already use in your day-to-day lives, or what you have studied and when you had studied it. So depending on those deviations, things will be, the success of the session may vary. So I'll try to keep it interesting. At the same time, I would encourage all of you all to share your examples in the group, so that we can actually make it more lively. Okay. So I will talk about the theoretical concept in statistics. We are not going to worry about too many formulas right now. Okay, we are just going to understand some of the basic concepts and some of the very basic constructs of statistics which are applicable in AI field. Okay, the entire broad area of statistics is never going to be possible to be covered. What we are trying to do is we are trying to look at what is possible in a short span of time of, maybe 1.5 hour or so, which we have today, to get into the AI things, and you'll be able to know what happens behind the scenes. So when we say these technologies are working behind the scenes and AI is working, a lot of it is happening with the help of statistics. Okay, and that's why what we will see is why we're going to do a statistics session in an AIML, kind of a workshop. So in the AIML workshop, what people really don't realize is that behind the scenes, what is actually at work are many statistical concepts. Okay, so for example, yesterday when we were talking about machine learning, okay, so machine needs to learn and needs to understand what is possible, right? And there are many various techniques, like somebody was telling me how what is the algorithm which is used in neural networks. All of this actually comes down to statistics and mathematics. Okay, more towards statistics. Why? Because mathematics gives you accurate answers. Statistics can fill up the gaps where you don't know certain things. And in real intelligence, intelligence is where you are not able to get actual answers. Okay, direct answers. If you have a direct formula to get something, you don't need AI. Okay, so doesn't matter how complicated the problem is. Okay, if the problem can be solved by a formula, mathematics will be able to do it. AI is any basic programmer can be able to do it. Okay, so now for example, the problems which Mursa sir was mentioning, in a classical example of bank reconciliation. Now, if you are looking at a bank reconciliation, everybody knows why it is so problematic. Okay, because what you see in the bank and what you have in your narrations in your books is, you matching it requires a little bit of intelligence, to identify the not only just the amounts, but to actually cross reference between the two entries and identify if there is any problem or if there is a mismatch in those entries. Now, having a tool which could do this will require to have some possibilities of, some variance can be occurring. There can be problems which could be, there is a slight mismatch. All of this cannot be handled by mathematics. It has to be handled by statistics, because statistics is a field of mathematics which requires, which is very, very applicable in the area of machine learning. Okay, um, so why is statistics so important? There are too many things in statistics. The nuts and bolts and tools and notations are all used in by machine learning practitioners and data scientists. So if you talk about today data science, you talk about machine learning, any of the tools or applications of machine learning like RPA, robotic process automation, all of that, behind the scenes use a lot of statistical formulae, a lot of statistical, mechanisms. Before I start, let me start off with a very, so what we're going to do is we're going to keep it simple, but I'm going to try to keep giving you the examples where it could be applicable. Okay, so the first thing which I would want to start off with is the concept of random numbers. Okay, um, everybody knows what a random number is, right? Does anybody know where random numbers are used? Do you all use random numbers anywhere? Y'all are accounting guys. Y'all are probably more worried about the actual, correct numbers. But can anybody give me a small example of where random numbers could be used? Okay, so somebody's mentioned CAPTCHA, which is good. CAPTCHA is a good example of random numbers. Yes, to generate random keys for taking sampling. OTP is a good example of random numbers during evaluation exercises. Okay, passwords. Yeah, everybody's uh, for selection and audits, right? You need a random number. So because if you want to do a sample and if you are unable to take every possibility, you would want to do, okay, VPN connections. Somebody is mentioning. Great. All right. So random numbers are used in all these areas, which you all are mentioning. Um, One of the other areas where you would use random numbers is like in OTP, you have these, two-factor authentications, wherein, for example, if you're doing a transaction online, your mobile app or sometimes you get a keychain or something like that where you can generate a number, where the number has to be entered and the computer needs to validate that number. Okay, so I remember, I think Kotak used to have something, Demat accounts used to have, the users of Demat accounts of Kotak were given a keychain where you have to press a button and a number would appear on the screen. Okay, so why is so OTP is a random number, absolutely. But if you look at the example of a the Kotak example which I gave you, or even if you use a Google Authenticator app, I don't know if you've used ever, okay, that allows you to make sure that when you not only a password, but there is another step of authentication which is generated. Now, OTP is a good way, but the problem with OTP is that you require a mobile connection, okay, a network connection. Now, if it's a mobile network connection and if you don't have data, okay, then you are stuck, okay, on your phone. So there are these authenticators available, or software apps available, which will generate a random number on your mobile, and you have to enter that number into your machine for it to be valid. Now these are done in very highly secure environments, but nowadays it is very, very common for every kind of an account, including your Gmail account. You can set it up if you want for two-factor authentication. Now, if a number is going to be generated on my phone locally, okay, without an internet connection, how would the server where it is going to be validated? So I enter the number on my screen and submit it. The server needs to check whether that number is correct. How would the server know that this random number is correct? Yeah, verification ID for unofficial connection. VPNs where you might be using it or whatever. Private and public keys are a good example of random numbers. But how would you know, how would you know, do you understand my problem? My problem is that, if you look at the Google Authenticator app, this is my Google Authenticator app. I don't know if you can see this. So if you look at the, yeah, I think the screen is too bright. So what happens is there's a number which gets generated on this screen. Okay, this number I need to enter after I enter my username and password on Gmail. This number is coming from my phone. Okay, it is not a number which is coming from a server like an OTP message. Okay, there's no message coming from the server to my phone. This number will change every 1 minute or every 30 seconds. Okay, and the number is absolutely random. Okay, so it's a 6-digit random number. So if you try to check there is no formula which you can use to get to that number, at least no visible formula. So what happens is, these are called as pseudo random number generators. They look random, but they are not really random. There has to be a mechanism by which the server can correlate with this number. Okay, so the server can also know what number is on my phone, okay, without actually that number traveling over the internet. Okay, so the number will only go through my machine. When I enter the number, look at my mobile, enter it on my laptop laptop will send it to the server. The server will generate its own number and check whether the numbers are the same. Okay, now this kind of things are used in various applications. Okay, now how do pseudo random numbers get generated? Just as an idea, let's look at this. So there is a random number generator is a device that can generate one or more random numbers for you, okay, with a defined scope. Okay, now defined scope means the size of the number. Okay, so it can be a 6-digit number, it can be a 4-digit number, it can be a 9-digit number, depending on what you want. So random number generators can be hardware based or pseudo random number generators which are software based. So the ones which is on your mobile phone or on my mobile phone is a software based number generator. So hardware based random number generators are things like, even a simple thing like flipping a coin. Okay, so it is a random event. You don't know whether it will come out to be heads or it will come out to be tails. So before flipping a coin, can you predict? So you can't. Obviously you can be right, but you are 50% of the times you are right, 50% of the times you are wrong. So a random event is such that you cannot predict with certainty what's going to happen. Okay, there is a possibility, but not a certainty. So a simple way of generating random numbers for you without getting into too much of, there are very complicated ways of generating random numbers. A very simple method of generating random numbers is, you take a 4-digit, any random 4-digit number. You start off with a some random 4-digit number, and then you multiply it to itself, the square of it. It will give you a 7 or 8-digit number, and you take the central digit, the digit in between, okay, as the new random number. So every the central 4 digits can become the next random number, and then you use that number to multiply it to itself, and again you will get new random numbers in the middle. Okay, so you can generate this way a lot of random numbers. Okay, without having to do much complicated formula, because whenever you multiply the number to itself, the middle four digits will be random. You don't know what is going to come out. Okay, unless of course, as the slide mentions, if you start out with a number like 000, because then you know that even if you multiply with 000, you're going to get with only zero. So there is no answer to this. Everybody knows that it's not random anymore. Yes. So income tax department is also using one. Yes. Right. All Big Four uses token mechanisms to access servers. Yes. All big corporates. Why just the Big Four? But all corporates today are using these. So before SMS, the small tokens were used to authenticate. HSBC used to give these tokens hardware based. Yes, that's exactly what Kotak used to do. Okay, I think it still does. Many of the people still have the Kotak demat accounts with a keychain which generates these numbers. Hmm. So people are talking about the Google Authenticator and everything. Like, I'm just reading out the messages. I was just really hoping that I did not miss out something important. Oh, yeah. So you had an issue with your Google Authenticator because your cell phone time was not network linked. Yes. So your time has to be very accurate because Google, as you can understand, to create these random numbers on its own uses the time. Okay. And if the time is not coming from the network, your time is not very accurate. And if it's a manually set time, then things can go wrong. Okay. So yeah, there are certain. So that's why the hardware keys which are generated by banks like HSBC or Kotak and all of that, they are so wonderful because there is no network, there is no network time required, nothing required. Okay, and these keys, unless you lose the key, nobody else can actually guess that number. Okay, not even Kotak themselves. You know, the server knows which keys is to be generated, but people inside the organization also cannot predict the number. Okay, so. That was a bit about random numbers. Now, why I was talking about random numbers is because, of course, there are so many applications of random numbers itself. Okay, so this was one. The other area of random numbers is like some people mentioned about cryptography. Okay, when you are sending your data across encoded. Okay, so we are gonna run. We're probably gonna do a session next week on IT risk, security and risk, and that time we can get into the cryptography part in much more detail. Okay. Whether Excel has a system to generate random numbers, it does. There is a function called random. How do those keys sync with the database to allow such access? You're talking about the two-factor authentication. It is at the time of when you install it, it requires a synchronization to be done manually for the first time. Once the first time the synchronization happens, then automatically it need not happen again. Oh, the Kotak key. The Kotak key synchronization is done. It is done by the technology implementation. It is a patented technology which is used. Okay, so the manufacturer of the key is the only one who has the details of it. So they have this pseudo random number generator, an electronic generator on the key, and there is a sequence which is put into the first time when it is switched on. The first sequence is put into the server with that key token. So once they have to be mapped, like every credit card is mapped to a person. The same way that keychain has to be mapped to that individual in the system, and the system will then be able to know what number and what next which random number will be generated at any given point of time. Yeah. All right. So with random numbers, um, come. So random numbers are one, and then there are random events, right? You have so many things. Like many people yesterday were talking to me, and we were talking about how AI can be used to predict stock markets, and many people said it's still not possible. Obviously, there are reasons for that. Why we cannot uh, get the full picture, and we cannot get an 100% accuracy because everything is with a probability. Okay, there is nothing is full and final. Okay, there is a variable of chance with probability. Okay, so when AI uses these techniques in AI and machine learning, which are used to give any answer, they have a certain probability. So, for example, when I give you the example of the loan granting system, so the system can decide whom to get or give a loan and whom not to give a loan. The system cannot be certain that the loan which it is sanctioning is going to be a good loan and that it will not turn bad. Obviously, there is a chance that it can still turn bad. Okay, so then the question is whether to trust a human being or whether to trust the machine. Okay, and this is where subjective debate can happen on whether a machine is more trustworthy or a human being is more trustworthy. Okay. Oh, algorithmic trading is happening, right? It is a reality today. Lots of companies and lots of people actually do use algo trading. Okay, I'm not saying that all algo tradings are successful, because if everything was on algo, and imagine a world where everybody does algo trading only, do you think anybody will make money and anybody will lose money? For money to be made on the markets, if you really think over it in detail, it requires a lot of things to happen, right? And there are external factors which are in nobody's control, right? So probability of an event is very important to understand. So I'm not getting into the basic probability. Everybody knows basic probability is P of any P is the symbol. So here I'm talking about joint probabilities and conditional probabilities. So if I ask you what is the probability if I flip a coin, what is the probability that it will comes out to be heads? Everybody will tell me that it is 0.5 or 50% chance that it will turn out to be heads. Okay, so somebody is saying that it's a great edge to have algos as you are ahead in the price action. Okay, so if you have a good algorithm, then yes. Okay, so uh, there are algorithms which have proven to be very successful. Obviously, everything has an error rate. Okay, there is a error rate in everything. Okay, that we'll talk about a little bit about error rates also, like as we go ahead. Even human beings can falter, so why can't machines? So when we talk about probabilities, we talk about joint probabilities and conditional probabilities. Okay, so what is a joint probability? Probability of an event A and B to occur, where A and B are independent events. Now, what is an independent event? An independent event is where two things are not related to each other. Okay, so for example, what is the probability that the stock market will go up, and what is the probability that it will rain today? So if two things are to be correlated, and if you want to talk about the joint probability that the stock market will go up and it will rain today, okay, can be considered as a probability of A and B. The symbol, you can look at the symbol as well. No, sorry. Machine is playing funny games. So this is probability of A and B. So what is the probability of A and B? If probability of A and B both occurring is probability of A and probability of B, which is you have to multiply individual probability. So if the probability of A, let's say probability of A is that the markets will go up. Okay, if the probability of A is, let's say the markets going up, the probability is say 0.5%. That means 50% chance that it will go up. And if the probability of rains, okay, which is probability event B is that it will rain today. If the probability of rain is, let's say, 10%, okay, that is 0.1. Okay, then the probability that it will rain and the markets will go up today. So probability of A and B occurring, probability of A and B will be a product of 0.5 into 0.1, which will be 0.05. So instead of 50% probability of going up and 10% probability of it raining, the probability of both happening will just be 5%. Right? You know, everybody is interested in the algorithms, the probability algorithms, right? So when we talk about these algorithms in stock trading, what you are doing is you are doing a probability trading, right? So the algos are giving you a probability, the chances of what is the probability that a particular stock will go up or a particular stock will go down. Now, if enough number of people are using algorithms, and if they are all using the same algorithms, do you think that will have a consequence on actual calculations? So because most of the algorithms which are built today are assuming that others are not using the algorithm. They are assuming a normal trade. Okay, so they are using. So when you're trying to predict, you're trying to predict on past behavior, and past behavior is where people did not have algorithms. Okay, so the algorithm which is being used to predict is assuming that it is the only one who's smart of having the knowledge of the past and using the past knowledge to predict the future. But what if almost everybody gets access to these kind of algorithms? Okay, then by the very fact, because majority, even if not everybody, even if majority people start using algorithms, the advantage of having the past records or having an algorithm to analyze those records and tell you is actually gonna be lost. Okay, and it's gonna be as random as anything. Okay, yeah, it will accelerate the process of change, but I truly believe that there is no mathematical evidence to suggest that if everybody has an algorithm, everybody will do better trade. Okay, it's a hypothetical situation. You have to imagine everybody having one. Okay, so what is the conditional probability? So now A and B, the two events which I mentioned was, for example, for the stock markets to go up and it to rain. These two are definitely non-correlated events. They're independent events. There is no correlation, or there is no way one can impact the other. Okay, there's no way that one can impact the other, and therefore they are what we will call as independent events. Conditional probability is something which is possible, which is to be calculated when they are dependent events. Okay, when the two events are not independent. Yeah, Mr. Suketu, I think what you're trying to say is the formula used in the algorithm is different, right? I agree. I agree. But even if the formula is different, yeah. Okay, so even if we limit it to these things, you have to be very careful about how it works. Now, when you talk about the conditional probability, conditional probability is when two events are not independent. Okay, that in other words, they might be dependent. So when probability of A and B are not independent, is often useful to compute the conditional probability. That probability of A, okay, given that B has occurred. So that is written as P A given B. A given B means we are trying to calculate the probability of A given B has occurred. So you could think of example as what is the probability of stock exchange or Bombay Stock Exchange, gaining points if the New York Stock Exchange has gained today. Okay, so because we are in a time difference, so you can calculate the probability of how they are dependent or independent events. Okay, so you would everybody would agree that stock exchanges around the world nowadays have some dependency on each other, some correlation with each other. So there is a conditional probability which you can check of how many times does the Bombay Stock Exchange go up, okay, when the New York Stock Exchange has gone up, or the Nikkei or any of the other stock exchanges, and you can try to find out as a study of how to predict these kind of things. Okay, don't worry, you all can write, you all can keep messaging whatever you want. I'll restrict myself from not commenting on every comment which everybody puts in. All right, so don't feel bad if I don't comment on your question immediately. Okay, let's not start putting too many messages about everybody agreeing with everybody else now. All right. So now, on the basis of probability, I wanted to discuss. There are many theorems and there are many applications and there are many algorithms which we will discuss some of these algorithms as we go ahead. Okay. Today, I just wanted to touch upon some of the relevant ones which are very close in statistics. Okay. Let me just see if I can clear my screen. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Probability of A given B would be the same as probability of A, isn't it? No, it won't be. So probability of A given B, if A and B are not independent events, okay, then it is not the same. Okay, let me let me give it another example. Okay, let me say that if uh, okay, if it is Rains versus stock exchange, they are independent events. I already told you that. Okay, you have to find two events which are not completely independent. What if there is a dependence? Okay, that's when the conditional probability comes into the picture, and that's what is used many of the times. Because you have to predict certain things based on some other events happening. So, like how do you decide your position in the market, right? You decide your position in the market based on other factors. Okay, and you try to see whether how do those impact the, yeah. So if you say what is the probability that a stock price will go high, a particular stock will rise if that company posts a profit of 10% in the current quarter. Okay, or what is the probability that the stock will lose if it loses its CEO? Okay, so there are these kind of correlations which there are events which, so if a company hires a new CEO, or if a company loses its CEO, or if the chairman of the company passes away, there are these things on which people speculate, right? And that's exactly what probability can help you calculate whether this will be in the long run, what could be the effects of these things. Okay, so many of the algorithms which we use, okay, these of course this is very basic probability. It's not the only thing on which, because the modeling for these probabilities is very complex. Okay, so there is this one of the theorem which we will use, which is called the Bayes theorem. Okay, um, so imagine if we want to find out the probability of selling an ice cream on a hot and sunny day. Okay, Bayes theorem gives us the tools to use prior knowledge about the likelihood of selling ice creams on any other day. Okay, and then we can try to find out the probability of selling the ice cream on a hot day. So if you have if you have historical data, okay, using Bayes theorem you can calculate, okay, uh, a hypothesis, the probability of a hypothesis to be true. Okay, so in likelihood of the evidence E. Okay, so the evidence E in this case is that what is the probability that you will sell, say, ice cream worth 5,000 rupees or more if it's a hot and sunny day. Okay, so then the formula for the Bayes theorem says, so if H is the hypothesis stating that we will sell ice cream of more than 5,000 rupees today, and E is the evidence, which is whether it's a sunny day or not. Okay, so if you have the probability of selling, so what is the probability that you will sell ice creams on any day for more than rupees 5,000? So there are days on which you will sell it, and there are days on which you will not sell for 5,000. So you will have a probability for 5,000 or more ka sales. So the probability of selling the ice cream is P of H. Okay. Everybody can see my pointer, right? You can see a red pointer on my screen. Okay. So the P of H is the probability, is the prior probability. Prior probability is probability of selling ice creams. Okay. And now we are trying to find out the likelihood of the evidence if the hypothesis H is true. Okay. That is probability that it is a sunny day and you have sold 5,000 rupees worth of ice cream, and then divided by the probability of that it being a sunny day. Okay, so this is what how it is calculated. This is the formula. So probability of H given E has occurred is equal to the probability of H occurring, okay, into the probability of E given that H has occurred, and divided by the probability of E. And please remember, probability of H given E has occurred and the probability of E given H has occurred are two different probabilities. Okay. So probably can be used in any kind of any game of luck. So any game which is stochastic, you can use probability to predict outcomes. Okay, I'm going to use the Bayes theorem for something else. So to explain the Bayes theorem, I understand it might not be very clear yet. So I'm giving an example which might be which might be valid in today's terms. Okay, so suppose in COVID-19 situation, everybody talks about COVID-19. So let us take a COVID-19 example. Now, what if you do a test? Okay, you do a test, your doctor advises you to a test, or somebody in your whom you know has undergone a test for COVID-19. Now you are also aware that there is some uncertainty in every test. No doctor or no testing agency can ever say that their test is 100% accurate. Okay, so there is something called the sensitivity of the test. Okay, so there is sensitivity and there is something called a specificity. Okay, so what is the sensitivity and the specificity? Let's assume that the sensitivity, that means true positives, are 95%, and let's say the specificity, that is the true negatives, are 95%. Now, what do you mean by true positives and true negatives? Okay, so if you look at my table below, the test can decide whether the person is sick or whether the person is healthy, right? So the test can tell you whether the person is sick or whether the person is healthy, but the real situation can be different. So the real situation, the person is sick or the real person, the situation is healthy, is another story. Your test might not always be accurate. So what happens is, the test, when the person is sick and when the person is actually sick and the test says he's sick, is called the true result. Okay, that's called a true positive. Okay, so the test is positive means that you are COVID-19 is test positive आया मतलब you have COVID-19. Okay, so somebody has COVID-19, his test will come out to be positive. So if he has COVID-19 actually and his test is positive, we say it is a true positive. What if, okay, he is not having, so if he's healthy, that means he is supposed to have his test coming out to be not positive. That means the test has to be negative. Okay, so for the if the test says that the person is healthy and he's truly healthy, that is called the true negative. Okay, that is correct, that he is negative, so his test is negative, that means he does not have corona or does not have COVID-19. Okay, so this cell is called the sensitivity and this cell is called the specificity. Okay, you want these two to be the highest. Now there is a faint chance that the test tells you that the person is sick even though that the person is healthy. Okay, and there is a small chance that the test tells you that the person is healthy even though the person is actually sick. Okay, so there these are called as false negatives, okay, and false positives. So this is a false positive and this is a false negative. Okay, so false positive or a false negative can happen in various scenarios. So now in this case, what we are assuming is that the test has 95% sensitivity and 95% specificity. That means assuming that if the test says that the person is corona positive, it is 95% accurate. And if the test says that the person is negative, it is 95% accurate. Okay, this is exactly the reason why the government prescribes that even if the test comes out negative, the person is not immediately released. Okay, the person is kept and again a test is done. Why? Because if the test is 95% accurate, okay, that is 0.95, and if the test is done twice, then the possibility that the test comes out to be wrong is very, 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 very less. So if there are two times the test says that negative and negative, okay, that the person is not having corona, then automatically that person is sick. The probability of that is not 95%, it is almost 99.99%. Okay, therefore they do multiple tests and they wait for the both the results to at least minimum two consecutive results to come out to be negative. Okay, otherwise they keep the person in quarantine till his two tests come out to be negative. So now in this case what we are doing is we are saying, if let us denote this. Okay, so let us say, if we let plus sign, the plus indicate that the test is positive and then minus indicate that the test is negative. Okay, then we say that the probability that the test gives you a positive result and you are having the disease, that means you are sick, okay, is 95%. And the probability that the test gives you a negative result, okay, and you are healthy, is also 95%. Okay, so here the positive test means that that you are sick, and the negative test means that you are healthy. So if it comes out to be corona positive, that means you are having the disease. If it comes out to be negative, that means you are healthy, you don't have the disease. Okay, and we said that the accuracy is 95% in each case. Then what if the doctor gives a result that "No, the test I have positive, that means you have." So what is the actual probability that you have the disease? No, actually, what is the chance that you have the disease? So then this is calculated by Bayes theorem. So the Bayes theorem says that the probability that you actually have the disease, given that your test has come out to be positive. So I'm reading this. Okay, so how do you read this big formula? Is like this: the probability that you actually have the disease, given that the test has been positive, is equal to the probability that the test is positive, given that the person has a disease, into the probability of the disease itself. Now, the probability of the disease itself is calculated by knowing the probability of how many people in the world are infected, the entire population. Okay, only then you can calculate this probability of the disease. Okay, so here, if you look at this thing, and then you divide it by the probability of the positive, given that the disease is, that the person is sick, into the probability of the person being sick, plus the probability of positive that the person is healthy, into the probability of the person is being healthy. So this is how the entire formula of the Bayes theorem is. Okay, so now if you apply this, okay, and you assume that the probability of the disease, okay, that the probability of coronavirus is just 0.5%. Let's say it's a very rare disease. Okay, that how many people around the world are sick. Okay, so corona may this number will be higher, but I'm assuming if it's a disease which is very less, then if the probability of the disease being very less, if it's 0.5%, this is what actually people were calculating it on. Okay, earlier it was assumed because no corona situation जब बहुत फैला नहीं था. Okay, at that time the probability was considered as 0.5%. Okay, the people, the entire population of the world, how many people are infected, was very less when it was limited to China. So the probability of the disease was 0.005. Okay, for the entire, which means that the probability of being healthy is 0.995. That is 99.5% probability that you're okay. Now, if you have been termed as positive, if your test comes out to be positive, if you apply the Bayes theorem, the answer is that there is a 9% chance that you are actually having the disease, even if the test is positive. So if the if the possibility, if the disease is very rare, if it's a 0.5% disease ratio, then even if you have a positive test, because of Bayes theorem, because the test is only 95% accurate, the actual probability that you have the disease is 9%. Okay, that's a wonderful calculation which Bayes theorem allows you to calculate. So now the same thing is applicable even in stock markets. You can change the entire thing to stock markets. What is the probability of something occurring when you know something else? Okay, so this is the basic formula, and there are lots of implementations. I will at the end of the session, maybe today or tomorrow, I'll send you some videos about actual implementations of Bayes theorem in various areas. Okay, which will clarify it much more. So everybody got a basic idea of the Bayes theorem. Bayes theorem can be used anywhere where there is, this kind of a table possible. Okay, so this is the where there is some kind of a test. Now the test need not be a medical test. Okay, it could be any kind of a test. For example, if you are using manufacturing and you want to reject the samples, okay, so you test quality control in any industry. The same thing happens, right? So when you pick out a sample and you test it and you find that the sample is faulty, can you reject the entire lot? So if you reject the entire lot, what is the chance that it is a positive and a true positive and true negative? Right? So that was about probability. Of course, there is a huge amount of things which can be done using probability. This is just a kind of a teaser and just an example of probability. Now, let me get into, so probability and statistics go hand in hand, right? So there are two different types of statistics also. So let me just talk about one type of statistics today, that is called descriptive statistics. Okay. Now, what is descriptive statistics? Descriptive statistics is basically explains, it talks about how do you summarize the data which is in front of you. Okay, there's something called as for inference statistics. Inference may you try to infer something. Okay, that is also an important aspect. But currently, let us limit ourselves to descriptive, which is a little easier. So descriptive statistics में क्या होता है? You try to summarize what is in front of you. So if you have a huge amount of data, you have to give a presentation to your colleagues or to your boss or whatever, and you have to say what it means. Okay. So if you have a lot of data in form of Excel sheets or whatever, then what is your if you want to summarize something, what you will use is descriptive statistics. Okay. So this is an example. 10 loan applicants are there. Okay. So there are 10 applicants. Applicant number 1, 2, 3 up to 10. Their marital status has been given over here. Okay, so I was talking about the prediction of how a neural network or anything can use to predict something, right? So if the marital status is given over here, if the mortgage is given given over here, their incomes is given over here, their rank in incomes. This is ranking of within the 10. So 48,000 is rank number 1, 38,000 is rank number 2. So this is income ranked within the same data set, and then the year in which they had applied, and the risk ratio, so good or bad, so whether the loan will be a good loan or whether the loan will be a bad loan, okay, is given over here. Okay, now if we use this data set, okay, and if we want to do descriptive statistics on this, okay, we need to understand certain things. Now, I'm assuming that this is already known. This is just an example. This is we already know this. Okay, so the question is very good. Who decides the risk is exactly the criteria where we will use AI. Okay, but what if we have historical records and we know that ये पुराना records है 2009, 10, 11 का, and I know that this loan is risky and this loan is not risky. Okay, because of the past record. So this is what we might use to then make assumptions about the future. Okay, so this could serve as a template on which people will make assumptions about the future. So this is how supervised algorithms in AI will work. So they would use this data and make these assumptions, right? So that is how these AI algorithms work. Let us understand how people understand this, and the same concepts are applied in AI. Okay, so if you look at this, so let me just introduce some of the terminology which we use. So we use that elements are the entities for which information is collected, are called elements. So the 10 applicants are the 10 elements. Okay, and there are variables for each of these elements. So each applicant variables which we look at is his marital status, his mortgage, his income, his okay. So are these three the income, rank, and the year in which they're taken? These are all including the risk. They are all variables. Okay. Now there are independent variables and there are dependent variables. So there are independent variables. For example, his income and his marital status are independent variables. They don't depend on each other. But obviously, there is a dependency between income and income rank, because the income rank is generated from the income itself. So this guy's rank is rank number one because his income is 48,000. If this was 28,000, this rank would not be one. So this is a dependent variable. So income rank becomes a dependent variable. Income is in itself is an independent variable because income does not depend on the rank. Risk is definitely a dependent variable. That is what we want to find out, right? In an AI application, what we would want to do is we would want to calculate the risk. Now, the question is, what is risk dependent on? Is it dependent on just the income? Okay, or are there more factors related to this risk? And more the factors, more problematic it is for a human being to take a decision. If it was dependent on only just one factor, then anybody could decide whether to give a loan to someone or not to give a someone. Just look at the income and decide the loan. Okay, so the question over here is, if the person already has a mortgage, okay, and then he has a good income, then what do you do? What if the person does not have a mortgage and he has a good income? What do you do? Exactly, mortgage would have a okay. Marital status would could also have an impact, because it would mean that there are dependents in the family, and therefore the amount of income he has to be shared. So the amount of disposable income might be lesser for a married person in comparison to a non-married person. That's a single person. Okay, all these things are there. All right. So now variables can be either qualitative or quantitative. Now qualitative variables means a qualitative variable enables the elements to be classified or categorized. So we call them as categorized variables, also categorical variables, also like marital status. These are called categorical variables. Why they are categorical variables? Because you can be single or married. You cannot put a number to it. Okay, it's not a one or a two. Okay, so I will come to that question, Mr. Naveen. Just give me 1 minute. Let me finish this slide. It's an important question which you're asking. So categorical variables are variables which are not numerical. So for example, even if you put a number to it, it doesn't matter. But that there is no relation. So if I say single is 1 and married is 2, does it really mean anything? Okay, so it's a categorical variable. It's a qualitative variable. A quantitative variable is like income. Okay, so income being a numeric value. Okay, then there are discrete values and continuous values. Okay, so discrete variables and continuous variables. Discrete variables means countable number of values is a discrete variable. Okay, if a numerical value whose values can be infinite, it is called as continuous variable. So for example, actual income in itself could be a continuous variable, because people can have any amount of income. There is no limit to income theoretically. Okay, but a discrete variable would be, for example, the income rank. It will have a finite number between which the rank will be. It will depend on the number of people whose applicants we are looking at. So the rank is definitely discrete, whereas the actual incomes could be continuous. Yeah, I understand. The moment I give a loan example, everybody is jumping onto the bandwagon of understanding what are the factors, and there are many factors. Obviously, there are, if I really want to look at it, in the real world, my loan application would have maybe 30, 40 factors to be considered, and that is why a human being taking a decision becomes very difficult for it. So what happens is people do what we call as subjective probability. There's a concept called the subjective probability. What is subjective probability? Subjective probability means that an individual takes a decision based on his based on his experience of the past, okay, and then decides what is good or bad for him or for the decision. Okay, so like a doctor's example, or even a bank manager or somebody who's a senior person who's granting the loan, he looks at all the papers, and his heart, in his gut, he knows whether to sanction the loan or not to sanction the loan, right? That gut feel जिसे हम लोग कहते हैं ना, कि you देख के पता चल रहा है. If you ask नहीं क्यों दे रहे हैं, why are you not giving this person a loan, he's not able to tell you exactly in words. He's not able to describe you why, because his income अच्छा दिख रहा है, married भी है, whatever, but नहीं, I don't want to give the loan to this guy. That is called subjective probability. Now the question is, this thing, yeah, exactly. So this thing which you say ना कि वो this comes with experience, ये knowledge है हमने gain किया है after so many years. That's exactly what we want to get at. That is what intelligence is all about, right? Calculating a number, doing a formula, वो तो calculator कर सकता है. उसके लिए आप, you won't say a machine is intelligent. Machines are able to do certain things which human beings cannot do very efficiently, like number calculations, for example. Yeah, lifting hundreds of kgs of weight. Okay, thousands of kgs, tons of weight, हम नहीं उठा सकते हैं, machines उठा सकती हैं. Doesn't make the machine better than a human being. Okay, it can do that work very well, but it's not intelligent. An intelligent system or an intelligent machine is one which can do the work the way a human being can, and a human being can decide on based of his past experience what is good for him or what is bad for him. Okay, and this has to be done through an AI algorithm, and there are AI techniques, and that's exactly where statistics plays a role. Statistics will allow us to get that, towards understanding what that behavior is. So now if you set in, and so now coming to your question, Mr. Naveen, what if the past data with lots of variables is fed into but no definitive outcome? So what we say is this, that if you can give me a huge historical database of something like this, but instead of having only 4 or 5 attributes, okay, what if you can give me 400 variables, okay, or 40 variables instead of these 4 variables, 40 variables, and whether it was a good loan or a bad loan, you will tell me, okay, sir, there is no relation which is possible over here. What relation is there, but people cannot see it. Okay, there is an entire branch of statistics, including things like econometrics. If you have studied econometrics, econometrics can find a model to fit into it what looks random, so when you see all of that, everything will look random. कि नहीं, any loan can be a good loan, any loan can be a bad loan, कोई correlation दिख नहीं रहा है. That is when we say that it looks to be random. Okay, so this is where things start changing. Where a human being cannot find a pattern, where a human being cannot find a model, that's where AI can come into the picture. जहाँ पे human beings are also getting into trouble. Or if it is possible with a lot of effort, if you do a lot of effort, you will be able to find it. Okay, so financial modeling, okay, is exactly that. Okay, econometrics is exactly that. We're trying to predict future में GDP बढ़ेगा कि घटेगा, what will be the impact of COVID on the real world economy. People are trying to calculate that. It is based on what? It is based on statistics. Okay. So now within descriptive statistics, we have something called as measure of central tendencies, yeah, measures of center. A very important and a very important way of identifying the describing some data is to have a measure of its center. Okay, so obviously everybody would know mean, median, and mode. Yes, I'm fair enough to assume that everybody knows mean, median, and mode. Yeah. So let us go to this example. Okay. So we'll just look at the examples and descriptive statistics. Okay. Mean is basically just the average, mathematical average, right? Median is the central value. If you arrange everything in ascending or descending order, if you arrange the variable values in ascending or descending order, the middle value is considered the median value, and mode is the most observed value. Okay, the value which occurs the most. Okay, now these three central tendencies, if you apply together to any particular distribution of data, it can give you a lot of meaning out of the data. Okay, many of the time people don't realize that even with this very basic three things, you can tell a lot about any particular data, especially if it's a univariate data. Univariate data means there is a single variable which you are talking about. Okay, so mean, median, and mode can give you certain inputs, but then there is another something called as variability. Okay, so before I come into variability, let me just ask us certain things. Okay, let's do some basic questions. Okay, that what if we wanted to find out the central tendency, okay, of a stock price, okay, in the past 1 year. Suppose I wanted to find out the central tendency of a stock of one particular company, कि इसका stock का central value क्या है? What would be the best way of doing it? Whether it would be the mean, whether it would be the median, whether it would be the mode. Okay, so initially everybody said mean, and now people have different ideas. Okay, so the people who give it a little thought have come out with either a median or a mode answer. So there are very few people who say median, but many people have said mode. But majority saying mean. Okay, mode as a number of time the price target was achieved. Okay, so Ms. Shilpa is trying to be a little more creative with it, so which is nice. I like that when people are trying to modify my question itself. So this is interesting, right? True mean. Okay, true mean means just the arithmetic mean. Okay, might not give me the exact way of describing the stock. See, this is a way we describe the stock, right? तो इसका average price इतना है. Average price इतना है. Yeah, this is what its average is. Okay, is not really a correct terminology, right? If the stock is highly volatile, do you agree that there is something called as volatility, right? Well, I don't know if that term is right. Huh? You may correct me. I'm not a very big stock market person, so I might be very wrong. But you know what a volatility is, right? The variability of something, right? So now, if the market, if you say that this stock is highly volatile, what does it mean? It means that it can deviate from its mean position by quite a lot. Correct? So something we say that its average price is say 1000 rupees, but this is highly volatile. That means this can range from anywhere from 200 rupees to 2000 rupees, but उसका average 1000 आता है. ओके, तो वो पूरे साल के अंदर वो एक टाइम पे 200 रुपए में भी चल रहा था और एक टाइम पे 2000 में भी चल रहा था, and the average value comes out to be 1000 rupees. Okay, now this is not a very good value. 1000 would not be a very good value if suppose that stock never achieved the value of 1000. Suppose most of its values were in the range of 200 to 800, and most of its values are in the range of 1500 to 2000. Most of the values. When you average it out, it comes out to be mean as 1000, but 1000 में वो बहुत कम बार आया था. Okay, in that range of 1000, it was very less, very few times in the 52 weeks high low averages में बहुत कम बार आया था. So you have to understand that, you know, the description of a variable is not alone can be decided by just its arithmetic mean. Having mean, median, mode together can help, but again, what also is required is the variability of that variable. You need to check for the variability of that variable. What in stock market you call it the volatility. The variability you call it as volatility. Okay, this stock is very volatile. Okay, so how do you calculate that variability? Okay, so the first way of calculating that variability is finding out the range of that variable. So suppose we say that the variable has a mean, arithmetic mean, average of 1000, but its range is 1800. 1800 matlab it varies from 200 rupees to 2000 rupees. So 200 to 2000, if you subtract 2000 may say 200, you will get 1800. So the range of that stock is 1800 rupees, and his average is 1000 rupees. That means it is a highly volatile stock. At the same time, suppose you have a stock whose also average is 1000 rupees, but its minimum value in last 52 weeks has been 900, and its maximum value in the last 52 weeks has been 1100. Then its range is only 200 because it is 1100 minus 900. So you will say this stock is more or less stable. It does not vary. It is not volatile. 100 रुपया ऊपर जाता है, 100 रुपया नीचे आता है, इसी के रेंज में वो खेलते रहता है. Correct? This is how we describe stocks, right? Okay, I'm just using stocks as an example, but then this can be used to describe any kind of variable. So the variability of a variable is very important. The other way of calculating this is called the variance. Variance also is another way of calculating something called a standard deviation. So variance and standard deviation are very interrelated. Basically, there's only a difference between a square ka symbol. Okay, so the popular variance is defined as the average of the squared difference from the mean and denoted as sigma square, where sigma is the standard deviation. So standard deviation is sigma, square of standard deviation is called variance. Okay, so there are two definitions here. So if I remove the square, then then what I'll do is I'll have to put a square root over here. I'll put a square root over here, then this sigma will be my standard deviation. And if I put a square sign over here, then I remove the square root from here, it becomes a variance. So sigma square is called as variance. So what is variance? Variance is all individual. So what I will do is I will take the 52 weeks, okay, all the days, every day ka closing price, okay, and subtract it from my mean, mu being my mean. I'll take the difference, square that difference, and add them up. Keep adding them up, keep adding them up, keep adding them up, and then divided by the total number of days the market was in session, and that will give me the variance of the stock. So if that number is big, that means the stock is volatile. Okay, so as I said, standard deviation and variance are one and the same. So standard deviation is basically a number a bunch of numbers that tell you how much the individual numbers tend to differ from the mean. So now, if you look at this diagram, if you look at this plot, you will see that there are three different variables. Let's assume that these are three different stock prices. तीनों का mean, all the three, the mean is at 100. So the mean stock price ka mean is 100. But one of them has a variance of 5, the standard deviation of 5, the other has a standard deviation of 10, and the third one has a standard deviation of 20. This will tell us how much it varies. Okay, so the peak which comes with the least standard deviation tells me that this stock, okay, is highly stable. It does not move around too much from its mean. It just is in that range of 82 to 118. Okay. Similarly, the purple line indicates that the standard deviation being 10, it can vary on both the sides, okay, from somewhere between 65 to 130. Sorry, 70 to 130. Okay. And similarly, the red line is far more variable, though the mean is again 100. And depending on what kind of position you want to keep, or what whether you are somebody who wants to play with volatility or doesn't want to play with volatility, depending on that, you will have to choose your stocks. Okay, so standard deviation is an important tool. So you have univariate and bivariate descriptive statistics. So when you do visualizations, it's important to know which visualization to use. So many of the times people want to make pie charts for everything. Pie chart is a good thing if you, or a bar chart is a very good thing if you have a single variate, a univariate. Okay, so the way you can use a mean, median, mode, dispersion, range, variance, quartile, standard deviation, is all of that is possible with a single variable. Okay, so you have the various plots used to visualize univariate data, like such as bar charts, histograms, pie charts. All of these are ways of expressing univariate descriptions. Okay, bivariate means that you have more than one variable, that is two variables. Multivariate is more than two, bivariate is two variables for determining empirical relationship between them. Okay, so if you want to calculate a correlationship between, let's say, married on single men, married and unmarried, so marital status versus their risk factor, then you have a bivariate descriptive analysis. Okay, now for that, it won't be sufficient to draw a bar graph or a pie chart. You will use something called as a scatter plot or a box plot. Okay, this is for visualization, guys. Okay, because what we will be doing as we go ahead in the week towards the end of these sessions, we will be using a tool, okay, such as Power BI. Okay, I think many of you might have heard of it. Many of you all might have used it. Okay, to do data visualizations, to understand this in practicality. Okay, आज मैं सारा सब theory में पढ़ा रहा हूँ. Okay, but it's not going to be theory for the rest of the weeks. Okay, it's just the foundation which we have to set before I start, because when I start using Power BI, when I start using tools, it is very easy to forget the fundamentals and be overawed by the red, green, blues, how to use this tool, where to click, where not to click. People get confused, get used to, or get bogged down in that. They are not worried about what does it mean to get this. Like many people, when they make this pie chart, they make horrible pie charts. People make horrible pie charts, okay, sometimes to indicate anything. Okay, and you might have had that experience in your workplace as well. Okay, people make any kind of chart for any kind of data. Okay, and the idea is to understand that all these charts are, what we are trying to do is we are trying to do descriptive statistics, or we are trying to describe the properties of that variable. Okay. Any questions still here? Okay, so correlation between stock prices, वो check करते हैं. ठीक है? So right now what we will do is, now we will do something called as correlation and covariance. Okay, दो चीजें हैं, very they are related to each other. So correlation is calculated using covariance. Okay, so let me just I'll explain what I'm doing a little in a few minutes. Just give me 1 minute. Yeah. Okay. So a correlation is a statistic intended to quantify the strength of the relationship between two variables. Okay, how closely two variables are dependent on each other. Okay, so when we say that if we are trying to build a model where we are trying to say that, you know, one variable is dependent on another variable and all of that, we need to prove that using correlation coefficient. So the correlation coefficient, or R, quantifies the strength and the direction in which the relationship exists. So now what is the strength? Means how strongly they are correlated. At the same time, the direction in which it is correlated, that means are they positively correlated or negatively correlated? Okay, so we'll come to that. So the value of R ranges between -1 to 1. Now this is very important, because, you know, if you know Excel, if you know Power BI, if you know SQL servers and whatever, you know, sir ne bhi bahut sare examples diye. There are so many tools available out there today, which if you give them numbers, na, they will calculate everything for you. I don't need to worry about the variable ka formula. This is the formula. The formula, okay, Sx and Sy are the standard deviation of X and standard deviation of Y. So there are two variables, X variable and Y variable. X bar is the mean of X, Y bar is the mean of Y. There are in total n readings. N readings means there are n observations, and then we are calculating the correlation between the variable X and variable Y using this formula. So it is the summation of X minus X bar into Y minus Y bar divided by n minus 1 into standard deviation of X and standard deviation of Y multiplied. So ये तो formula हो गया. I don't want to get into the formula. I don't want to get into the derivation of the formula. All of that is not part of. We are not students of statistics. We know that this is correlation. This is the formula. How the formula was invented, it's immaterial. Now the question over here is, what can we do with this formula? The answer of this formula will always be in the range. The R value will always be in the range of -1 to 1. And if it is 0, if the value of R is 0, that means the two variables are not at all related. Not at all. Okay, even if the value is very close to 0, 0.001 or something, we will say there is no strong correlation between the two variables. But if the value of that variable is minus 0.9 or positive 0.8 or 0.9, then we say that they are strongly correlated. But if the sign, if it is near to -1, we say that they are negatively correlated. If it is the value of R is near 1, then it is positively correlated. What does that mean? That if they are positively correlated, that means if the value of X will increase, Y will also increase. But if we find ulta, if we find that when the value of X increases, the value of Y decreases, then we say it is negatively correlated, जो हम लोग inversely proportional कहते हैं. Okay, so if you want to check a correlation between the New York Stock Exchange and the Bombay Stock Exchange, you can do that using, you know, let's say if you have the data for the last 1 year of the stock, of the change in the market every day, positive हुआ कि negative हुआ, if you have that data in your with you, you can actually check the correlation between the New York Stock Exchange and the Bombay Stock Exchange and see if they are positively correlated or negatively correlated, or if they are not at all correlated. Yeah, you can check for good example, gold versus stock market. You might find a negative correlation there. That when the stock market does badly, gold does superbly well. And when the gold does superbly well, when gold does badly, stock markets are generally performing well. So you might find a negative correlation. This is what we assume, right? So that is an hypothesis. So another term which we use in statistics is a hypothesis. And a hypothesis is basically an assumption. Okay, so an assumption that gold, the prices of gold will increase whenever the stock market performs badly is an hypothesis. Now, to test this hypothesis, when somebody says this, okay, then to test this hypothesis, you need to use statistical tools such as correlation. What you will do, you will list out all the closing day prices for gold and the closing day prices for stock market, closing of stock market for an entire period of, let's say, maybe 6 months, maybe 1 year or whatever, and then try to find whether find whether they're correlated or not. If the correlation comes out to be strongly positive, then you can say that that the hypothesis is false. Why? Because if it's strongly positive, that means the prices of gold, when it increases, stock market also increases, and our hypothesis was ulta. That our hypothesis said that whenever the gold price increases, stock markets are performing badly. So depending on what we have written hypothesis, things can really change. People sometimes mistake, don't write the things or interpret the data correctly. पॉजिटिव नेगेटिव का मीनिंग कंप्लीटली चेंज हो जाता है जब आपका हाइपोथेसिस अलग होता है. अगर आपका हाइपोथेसिस ऑलरेडी assumes an inverse correlation, okay, then means you need to, what your correlation should prove is a negative correlation. It should prove that it is negatively correlated. Okay, so many of the times I've seen people, misinterpret results. Okay, many of the tools which are out there will give you certain answer. Oh, sorry. So why I had put this in, why I had encircled this, is that if you remove the Sx and Sy, if you take the one which I have highlighted, this is the formula for covariance. So in other words, correlation is equal to covariance divided by the standard deviation of X and standard deviation of Y. So if you take, this is my CV. This is my covariance. So R is nothing but covariance, divided by the sigma of X, that is standard deviation of X, and standard deviation of Y. Okay. So now I get the definition of covariance. So what is covariance? Covariance is nothing but basically this. I don't need to write it again. Summation of X minus X bar into Y minus Y bar divided by N minus 1. That's it. And N being the number of observations. So number of days for which you have the observations available. Okay, let me just clear this out. Okay, so now we can go to covariance. So here we will do that stock market ka thing. Okay, so let us take two stock market prices. Let's take ABC as one. So I'm not using any name of any stock. So let's assume ABC is a stock and XYZ is a stock, and this is the percentage returns, okay, of every day. So there are 5 days we've calculated the returns of ABC and the returns on XYZ. Okay, and luckily all of them are positive. Okay, luckily, because I'm assuming that you are invested in it. And these are 5 days ka ABC ka correlate ka price, sorry, stock closing prices, and the XYZ ka closing prices. So this is the change in everyday closing prices. Now I want to find a covariance. So now how do I calculate the covariance? So to calculate the covariance, what I do is, for we need to calculate the average return for each of them. So what is the average return? Basically, you can sum up all of them divided by 5, you will get 1.3. You will sum up the XYZ values and divided by 5 and you will get 3.74. This is the average return. Do you agree? So the average return for ABC is 1.3. The average return for XYZ is 3.74. Now we take the difference between ABC's returns and the ABC's average return and multiply it to the difference of XYZ and its average return. So what we do is we take a difference between 1.3 and minus 1.1 and multiply it to 3.74 minus 3, and we take a summation. So that's the formula. That is the formula over here. Okay, x minus x bar, y minus y bar. So what is x bar? 1.3. What is y bar? 3.7. And then I have to take we have to subtract 1.3 में से 1.1 and multiply 3.74 में से 3. So this will give me 0.2. This will give me 0.74. Multiply that and then add it to the difference of 1.3 minus 1.7 and 3.74 minus 4.2 and keep doing that. And this answer we will divide it by n minus 1. N minus 1 in this case, because it is 5, it will be 4. So this is the formula. Return of ABC minus average of ABC multiplied by return of XYZ minus average XYZ, इसका summation, and divided by sample size minus 1. So 5 है तो minus 1 मतलब 4. So we've calculated that, 1.1 minus 1.3 into 3 minus 3.74 plus 1.7 minus 1.3 into 4.2 minus 3.74. ऐसे करते करते सबका करके we've calculated that, divided by 5 minus 1, which is 4, and the answer is 0.665. So in this case, because it is away from 0, it is plus 1 के नजदीक जा रहा है. This is going towards plus 1. 0.665 is showing that it is strongly correlated, positively correlated. Positively correlated means that every time the ABC ka price will go up, XYZ ka price will also go up. Correct? So this is showing the positive correlation between the two things. So that covers the entire theory which I wanted to cover with respect to descriptive statistics today. If there are any questions, please let me know. So yesterday I remember there were lots of questions and we were out of time. So I purposely tried to complete it within time so that everybody, there was this nobody gets tired of the too much of statistics going on. Do you have any questions with any of those? So I can go back and just quickly take you to whatever we've done today. If you remember, we started off with random numbers and we looked at why there are so many applications of random numbers out there. Right. There is a slight difference. I will not get into it because I don't have the tools right now in terms of beta and the variance. I will send you some material on. There's a slight difference between what a beta and a variance is. Yes, I will send you some. I'm sending you right now the presentation for yesterday and today, and I'm sending you a list of links which you can go through. Okay, I will also send you a ebook if you want. It's a very short ebook. It will very quickly take you through some of the things which we have discussed today. Did I not mention you my? Did I not give you an introduction? I think Shweta did introduce me yesterday. So just for people who don't know, My name is Asif, and I've been teaching for the last 17 years, and I have been my entire education has been in computer science. I'm a master's in computer science. I'm doing research in computer science. I currently am the vice principal of a college in Vadala called as Vidya Lankar. I don't know if you've heard Vidya Lankar. Many of you all might know, if you who are from Mumbai will know that Vidya Lankar is a very big name in classes. Okay, but we also have a college, an engineering college, and a science and a commerce college and a management school and all of that in a place called Vadala. And I'm the vice principal over there. And yeah, I that's basically a short introduction. Then there are lots of other things which I keep doing. You can post me an email. My email ID. I don't know if you can see it. If you can't see it, let me share my email ID with you.
Sir, Asif sir,
Yes.
sir,
Yes,
we
sure.
will share your complete profile, your and Saurabh sir, both the profile we will share them via
No,
email or WhatsApp group.
no problem. No problem. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Um, that is my email. You can actually connect. All of you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Somebody has actually connected with me on LinkedIn already. So I accepted that just before starting the session today. I will also try and send you the presentations right now itself. Okay, before I forget. But is it okay? Now I'll just send the presentations.
Sure, sir.
Algorithm, let that there is a session on algorithms. Let that happen. Then I think Saurabh is going to take the session on algorithms. You can ask Saurabh sir. I will tell him that he will share some reading material for algorithms as well with you all. Okay. I'm surprised people are still joining the group. अच्छी बात है. I'm just going online, just sharing with you all the presentation currently. Okay. Yeah. Any other questions which you'll have? Yeah, I can quickly recap. That's not a problem.
So can we close for today?
I think somebody just wanted a quick recap, so I'll just take 2 minutes. I'll just recap the quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
For recording, so we are also trying. So let me check with the technical team how we can provide that. But in any ways, we would be able to provide after the completion of this workshop. In between, daily recording is not possible.
अगर ये गो टू वेबिनार पे है तो शायद ऑटोमेटिक है रिकॉर्डिंग. इफ यू गो दैट लिंक, आई थिंक द लिंक डे टू डे लिंक चेंज हो रही है क्या? नहीं ना? If the link is
Yes,
changing every day, then the
link
link
is.
of every day will have the recording. So if you go to yesterday's link, should have the recording already over there.
So I've checked with the technical team. So they were saying me that we will send it to all the participants after the completion of this workshop.
अच्छा, ठीक है. So they might have done a local recording, so that's okay. That's not a problem.
Maybe.
Uh, hmm. We use these stats while auditing. आप कौन से stats की बात कर रहे हैं? Which statistics? ठीक है, no problem. As Shweta ma'am said, she will reply. Like, uh, if you have a if you're writing something, na, write together and send, because what happens is if you'll write one line, other people's messages get interposed and I can't read your messages correctly. So if you are talking about variance and correlation, Mr. Vineet, variance and correlation obviously has a lot of applications in every kind of, whenever you are doing number crunching, whether it is auditing or any other kind of analysis. Auditing is a kind of an analysis in itself. So right, so automatically variance, correlations, covariance, regression, all of these can be used. Regression is used when you want to project something, when you want to predict something in the future also, okay, or past. If you want to interpolate or if you want to find extrapolate certain data, you can always use various statistical techniques which are there. Okay, I did not get into regression because regression itself would have taken me 2 hours to complete, which is again a very important technique. Okay, so quickly, what we did today, we looked at random numbers, then we went into the probability. We looked at what is joint probability, probability that A and B are independent events, and then what is the joint probability? That is probability of A into probability of B. If they are conditional probability, if A and B are related, that means that then we have to calculate probability of A given that the probability of B. Everybody can see my screen, right? Shweta, my screen is visible, right? Okay. Then we look at the Bayes theorem. Bayes theorem was where we said that if you want to have a test, where you want to, when you have a conditional probability and you want to check whether that is valid, or what would be the actual implementation. So Bayes theorem is a very good thing when you have this kind of a scenario, where you have a test which you want to check whether whether the test is accurate or not. Okay, so if the probability of A given B has occurred. Okay, so this is how to evaluate, positive cases. So if you have a P plus, P positive means you have a positive test. If a test is positive for any particular test, okay, and this is a biological test, but it can be a non-biological test, okay, and then you want to how much can you trust a test, okay, is important. Okay, so Bayes theorem allows you to do that. Okay, descriptive statistics, I already told you, you have variables, you have qualitative variables, you have quantitative variables. They are also called as categorical variables and numerical variables. Uh, Numerical variables can be discrete or they can be continuous. Discrete means the numbers are finite, unique values. Continuous means there are a continuous set of values, probably infinite values. Okay, so the examples of income of a person is a infinite value. Okay, similarly, if you really look at it, continuous variable, for example, weight of people. Okay, you can put it in decimals. If you put it in decimals, then it's a continuous variable. People can have different kinds of weights. Okay, so weight of a person can also be discrete variable. May you can have things like age of a person. You will have a 0 as the starting point, and maybe 110 or 100 can be the maximum. Okay, 100, 110, whatever you decide. So they are discrete values. Okay, we looked at measures of central tendency as mean, median, mode. I explained to you how each of them is different and which places we can use them. Okay, and then variability, we said range and variance. So range is the maximum and the minimum value between which the values are deviating, and variance is how much of it is deviating by how much. So that is standard deviation. Okay, square root of standard deviation is nothing but variance. And then we looked at univariate and bivariate descriptive statistics, so where things like histograms and bar charts are good examples, or pie charts are good examples of univariate descriptive statistics, whereas bivariate descriptive statistics can be explained using scatter plots and box plots. Okay, and then we looked at correlation and covariance. Okay, so correlation is how two variables are dependent on each other, whether they're positively correlated or negatively correlated. Positively correlated means they increase. When one increases, the other also increases. Okay, negatively correlated, that means they're inversely proportional to each other. Okay, so that's a quick recap of the things which we have done today. Okay, let me just share the presentation. Yes. I'm just sharing the presentation with you all. I will also share some material which you can go through. Okay. I'm also sharing the today's session right now. Shweta ma'am, I think we are done. So should I end the meeting?
Yeah, sure, we can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. All the participants, please note that from tomorrow till 14th of May, we are having a session of Sohrab sir as scheduled. I mean, from 6:30 to 8:30. And from 15 to 17, again, Asif sir will be there from 4 to 6. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Yes, we can
thank you,
close.
Shweta. Yeah.